this episode is probably one of the best in the series because it answers a lot of questions from before, but it raises some new ones along with dropping some massive revelations. Let's dive in.
Do you, have a TV in this barn? Impressive. Okay. What do you got? HDMI, all right?
Is this another one of your videos?
Forget it. When you see this one, let's just say it's disturbing. And I hate to use a cliche, but you might want to sit down. Seriously.
Again, I'm going to put it out there for those who have not seen episode 5. Spoilers are coming because the end of that episode last week was a strong cliffhanger. So if you have not seen episode 5, step away now, please. You have been warned. Now, at the end of episode 5, Carol is inside this packaging plant and the episode ends with her discovering some really disturbing stuff in the freezer storage. There were plenty of theories online about what you might find. General consensus was that they were human parts, and that is exactly what she discovers. So episode 6 opens with Carol finding human parts wrapped neatly, including a human head. They're all on the shelf. There's tons of them. This is a massive freezer storage, and is packed with human remains. Now, it is disgusting a little bit and it's scary, and even with some expectations, it still was a little bit of a shock to see what she actually finds, and obviously the millions of questions that this raises. Carol's will record everything. She does that as she did in the past episode. She becomes frantic and desperate to share this discovery with the other 11 like her, but instead of mailing this little memory card over to the others, she decides to hand deliver it to Las Vegas, where she wants to drive to, and she wants to deliver it to, and discuss it with Mr. Diabate, I believe is his name, that chap from episode 2 that is making the most of this new world. Actually, it would be nice to see a bit more of these side characters and their backgrounds, because what were they doing pre-event to make them just accept this new world order? There must have been something that made them become so accepting of this new crazy new world. Before Carol arrives in Las Vegas, we get a little bit of a glimpse of Mr. Diabate's lifestyle. And that's another reminder of what this might look like, what this world could look like if Carol accepts to be joined. In one word, it's all fakery, it's all pretend. Mr. Diabate has organized a full casino evening at one of the fancy hotels in Las Vegas, and all the joined participate to make it feel like the old world, but shaped by his version of events. He's probably everything that he has not achieved or not managed to do in the old world. He's successful with women, he's respected, he's wealthy, he's always wins at the casino. Around him there's hundreds of joined that act as waiters and players to maintain this make-believe environment where he can be happy. But the fact that he not only knows that this is all fakery, but accepts it, it's what makes it even stranger and disturbing. It's obviously is not going to be self-sustainable, because he will eventually get bored without actual humans around him to have some interesting conversations besides just them doing whatever he wants. Once the two of them are together and in one of the nicest hotel suites, Carol is eager to reveal what she has found, obviously. But she first discovers that her previous recordings that she sent via mail have been received and seen, but nobody else has replied to it. But also that means that all the others have seen her recordings. But then the first bomb essentially is dropped, which is the fact that Mr. Diabate and probably the others, they already know that the joined are consuming human remains. And this is a proper WTF moment. I mean, he's totally blasé about it. He knew they are eating humans and chose not to tell her. They turn people into that oily substance that we found out in episode 5, and drink them, and he's just mildly disturbed by it. It's like unbelievable, this first revelation. But Then what immediately follows is a proper comedic scene where, in a recording on the TV, the joint explain why they resort to eating human remains. And it is done in the style of one of those corporate training videos, and is delivered by none other than John Cena, who introduces himself with, "Hello, we are John Cena." So it's just an excellent comedic moment, but also, makes me wonder what other real life people will appear in the series down the line. Remember the actual Albuquerque mayor from episode 4 when he's thanking us for our vote. So that was a cool cameo too. In this video, John Cena explains that the joint cannot harm any life, and that includes plants and animals, not just humans. So they consume windfall food like plants and fallen fruit, for example. And they also have access to huge amounts of processed food from before the joining, but that is still not enough to feed over 7 billion individuals that are left in the world. So as a result, they have to use human remains after a person dies naturally. So they extract the necessary protein to create a consumable substance called HTP, which stands for human-derived protein, which gives the episode the title. And they have refined this food source as much as possible into this little carton of milk filled with this substance. That's the best they can do with the world they inherited, essentially. And these are some massive revelations because we get to understand a bit more about why the joint behave the way they do. But the flood of new information, the flood of revelations did not stop there. In a discussion that follows between Carol and Mr. Debate, she learns that even with the current food supply, there will not be enough food for the joint to survive more than 10 years. Another massive revelation. So she also discovers that obviously the other non-joint like her, the other 11, have been communicating twice a week on Zoom, but she was not invited, and we'll come back to that in a moment. Now, these revelations are completely mind-blowing. They push the series in a totally different direction. It sort of like resets the board with these new rules and new objectives. My first thoughts when I saw this, was, first of all, good thing that Carol buried Helen in the back garden. Otherwise, Helen would have ended up inside a carton of milk. But the bigger question is, what type of virus is this? It appears to be self-destructive, right? Think about it. A virus is a microscopic infectious agent that can only replicate inside living cells, and it can evolve through mutation. So it begs the question: is this even a virus, or is it perhaps a mental condition where there's restrictions? These restrictions of do not kill are programmed in. And if so, what type of a world is the virus intended to be for if it cannot sustain itself under these restrictions? But then another question that these revelations pose is does this food crisis now will force the joint to prioritize solving the crisis instead of protecting the remaining humans? And if that's the case, it means that protecting them means they will lose some of their own, because they have to allow so much waste, like filling a full supermarket for Carol, where she wouldn't even need it, that much food. And that will automatically mean sacrifice some of the food for the joint. So why even do it in the first place? If you have any theories of what happens next, let me know in the comments. I'll be eager to read them. But back to the episode, at the same time, it means that every time Carol has one of her fits of anger that produces a seizure, then essentially she feeds the joint, because those that die during the seizure become food because they naturally die. So that's a very, very funny and very dark angle looking at it, at this new situation. But there's also development in the character side. So Carol, we've seen this, she struggled with loneliness since the event, and finding out that the remaining humans deliberately excluded her from their Zoom meetings twice a week, that is a painful blow. It damages her confidence, to hear that the only other humans on the planet alive like her find her disruptive and choose to exclude her and choose not to speak with her. But the revelations continue. The joint cannot turn the remaining humans into one of them without consent. This is another big rule that is introduced. So Carol essentially must consent to be turned, because they know how to do it, but it requires tailoring the virus to each human individual, which means they need to get a sample from each human, and they cannot take that sample without consent. So again, new rules that fit very nicely within the overall world that was created in the first couple of episodes. So these new rules in the series resets the board essentially for Carol, and it's making her and us obviously understand better the world that she lives in, the dangers, the limits, the purpose of the virus too. It also resets her objective, because think about it, with this new information, she desperately needs to find a way to reverse the joining before the joined develop a long-term food solution. So it's also like sets the stage, sets a race between Carol and the joined, when Carol has almost no chance of winning because she's alone without any medical knowledge, and then she faces the collective intelligence of the joined. A very powerful, very impactful episode, let's call it, in the series. And the final minutes shift to Manuzo in Paraguay, who sees one of Carol's earlier recordings where she announces that there is a way to reverse the joining, and he decides to go and meet her. And then we also see that his chaperone is his mother, which will definitely have an impact later in later episodes. And then he gets in the car and drives away. So that will be a really long drive, because from Paraguay and New Mexico is not like overnight drive. But this is an episode that essentially is the great reset of an episode. Is my favorite so far, and it just again resets the series into more mystery and weird things that are bound to happen. But let me know in the comments if you think this episode is better than the pilot, and I will see you next time.